Welcome to episode 6, part 6 of Adults. Neil has managed to wangle his way into the art class. On a wild card, he is student number 11, and he's sitting towards the back of the group, and he's got his own easel and canvas, so he's a fully fledged student and should be treated accordingly. The atmosphere in the class is quiet, it's subdued, people are taking their art seriously. The ranges of ages are between about 30 to maybe 60. They're mature, recreational art students, and have invested their time in this evening class. Therefore, they're not chit-chatting and larking about. These are grown-ups who are wanting to take their art to the next level, and Hazel is quietly shuffling around, keeping an eye on her students and on the model, the topless model, who's also a mature woman. She's not a young girl. The model is a mature, older woman. And so, as Hazel wanders around quietly, making sure everyone's okay, she walks over to Neil, who's busying himself creating shapes with his charcoal on his canvas. Hazel stands over him and says in a friendly and gentle voice, "Neil, have you done much drawing before?" Neil seems to take this slightly as a challenge. He almost thinks he's been talked down to, so his eyes widen a little bit. "Yes, quite a bit," he says, well, fixing his eyes on her. He's looking at her as if to say, that was a stupid question. Why are you asking me that? He looks a wee bit taken aback. And Hazel says, "You're realising, of course, the human body is a very difficult subject." Neil just stares at her. And so Hazel leans forward very close to Neil. She's now kind of leaning right over him. And almost within touching distance, her goldenly red, she's got blondish, reddish, golden type of hair, and it's drooping down over her shoulders very close to Neil. So he's getting probably what he feels is intimacy here, and I think he's a bit starstruck. Maybe that's the reason why he's just fixing her with a gaze. And so she says, demonstrating with the charcoal and lining it up with the model, "Chop her up into sections," she says, and Neil doesn't say anything. He just keeps looking at her very intensely. And Hazel suddenly realises the intensity of his gaze and says to him, Keep your eye on the model. Neil, don't look at me. Line up your proportions and transfer it to the paper. Neil only glances for a slight second at the model and then he turns his eyes to the side and stares again at Hazel, who's only a foot away. Neil's eyes are very wide. He appears to be in some type of hypnotic trance at her proximity. Hazel hands him the charcoal back and quietly walks away, leaving him to get on with his art. Neil looks down at his bare white canvas with a rather crude drawing of what looks like a black and white bare outline of what looks like a very haggard, unshot kind of face on the lady, and with big breasts. Very crude type of charcoal sketch with very thick lines, and he starts to dig in his charcoal pencil to try and form some lines, and it just snaps in his hand, the charcoal stick, with the intensity of his grip. Welcome to part 7 of this story, Adults, where the tension is starting to increase a little in the drama. So stay tuned. It could be worth it. It's coming to the end of the art class, the evening class, and Neil is put his Parker back on and he's rolling up his drawing to take it home with him. He looks like a little school kid, actually, in a big adult body. With an unsure demeanour, he walks up to the teacher, Hazel, as the others are just wandering out of the classroom, and he says to Hazel, I'd just like to say thank you. You weren't discouraged, she says. He says, oh no, far from it. And he's gripping and fiddling with the tube. He's rolled up his drawing into a tube and he's fiddling away, fidgeting with it. His canvas, which he's formed into a cylinder. She smells at him warmly. Good. And there's a pregnant pause, and then with a stutter, Neil blurts out, Can I take you for a drink? There is a slight pause with Hazel's reaction, almost as if she contemplated saying yes, but only for a fleeting moment, and then she says no, in a way that just to say no, it's not on not appropriate. Neil maintains a steely kind of stare at this rejection. His bottom lip begins to quiver a bit. Instinctively, Hazel realizes the tension and says, "But thanks for the offer, though," to give him some type of reward. And gently spare his feelings. And so all the students go. The class is closed, shut up shop, and it's now the evening. It's dark again, and Hazel has her coat on, her long coat, and she's wandering along a pathway between concrete pillars. She's probably heading for her car, the Volkswagen Beetle. However, there is a man standing in the shadows. And could you guess who that is? Yes, it's Neil. And in his hand, he has the distributor cap and cables from her car. So clearly he's taking matters into his own hands. He's not going to allow her to drive home because he's nobbled her car, it would appear. Hazel was now into the open street. In the evening, she's walking along, bright and breezy. There's quite a few people around. It's early evening on the streets in the built-up centre of the city, and her expression is that of a bit of relief, and it was a success, the art class this evening. There is a bit of background to the art class and why she was even there, but I will reveal that later for effect. But the art class wasn't her normal thing to do, and there is a reason for that, and so therefore there's a bit of relief at the responsibility is over, and also she feels satisfied that everything went well at the class. Hazel, very sociable, respectable woman. She doesn't like to get into anything that could be seen to be, behaviour which is not proper. So she's a sociable person, and she likes everybody to be happy. Not a confrontational type. She's obviously not even ambitious. Her ambition is to make sure she fits in, keeps a clean image, and helps her friends. She's not a pushy type of person. She's a people pleaser with a generous spirit. Her gorgeous reddish blonde hair flicks around in the wind as she opens the driver's door of her little Beetle, sits in the seat, closes the door over, puts the keys in the ignition and turns over the starter motor. Couple of tries, not a chance. Not even a hint of it starting. Why would there be? There's no distributor cap in there. Of course, the engine's at the back with the Volkswagen Beetle. Just a little red light on the clock on the dashboard. I don't think that Hazel is a mechanic, but she gets out of the little car and wanders to the back, lifts up the back hatch to reveal the engine. Poor girl, she's not really cut out for this type of thing. She's well dressed and she doesn't want to get all oil, and what's she going to know about an engine like that? She's definitely someone who she's staring at the engine but completely clueless. And next up, there's footsteps. She looks up and there's a tall guy wearing a parka standing there. It's Neil. "Can I help?" he says. So next up, Neil's doing the driving and they're sitting in his car is, I was giving him a Rover, but that wasn't right. He's actually got an estate Volvo, Neil. Not a brand new one. It's could be 5 years old. Working condition, but it's nothing flashy. But it is a long, quite a big car estate of Volvo, robust type of car. He's at the steering wheel, she's in the passenger seat, and he's been the gallant rescuer of the damsel in distress. "You're a wonderful teacher, Hayes," he says to her, giving her a kind of nickname of familiarity. "Thanks," she says naively, not realising he's sabotaged her car, so she's grateful for the help. As he congratulates her as being a wonderful teacher, while she's smiling warmly at the compliment, his eyes are calculating and getting a bit menacing looking. He's obviously thinking of the next move. He's got her this far and he's got some sort of backhanded savvy about him. He can manage to manipulate even though he's very awkward about it. He can kind of get what he wants out of situations, it would appear. So at the compliment of her being a wonderful teacher, she says, "Thanks, I'm not, but thanks anyway." So there's a little bit of background to why she was even there, which as I said, will be revealed. "Why do you say that?" he says, querying her over modesty, her being immodest. Sorry, being actual modest. "I'm not a good teacher," she says. I haven't got the personality for it," she says, genuinely. Neil shakes his head slightly as he's concentrating on the road, driving along. Very slight shake of his head. "Don't put yourself down," he says, looking perturbed. "You've got a great personality," he says. Hazel is kind of believing this. Neil goes on, "You make me feel confident. Like I could do anything, says Neil. You make me feel like I could do anything. Good, she says. She's been a people pleaser. She likes everyone to be happy. So she's got a wee smile on her face because the situation is happy. She's getting a lift back, and she has an appreciative student, and all's well. Hazy Daisy, he says, looks at her, kind of giving her a bit of a nickname. She grins. That's me, she says. Stony-faced Neil then says, a well-known children's author, while staring at the road. Why'd you say that? She says to him. Well, you are, aren't you? He says. Hazel's looking a bit thoughtful, trying to trace a memory. Or the lines appear on her brow. She gets a bit furrowed. Someone said that to me last night. Those words. World famous author. She's trying to recall a memory of this happening, a bit like deja vu. He briefly turns to her. Neil briefly turns to Hazel. Takes his eye off the road slightly for a moment. Well, it must be true then, he says, if people are saying it. No one said it before, she said, still thoughtful about this, says Hazel. Never heard anyone say that before. How do you know about me? She says to him directly. He hesitates. The stutter and the stammer come in. I saw your picture in the window of a bookshop. Right, she says. And then she says, oh, right, we're nearly there. I can walk from here. You can just stop here, she says. Oh no, I wouldn't dream of it, he says. I'll take you all the way home. There's no need, she insists. Neil's eyebrows lower into a slight frown. He shakes his head. You shouldn't be out alone at night. He carries on cruising in his big Volvo estate. Stop here, she says. Here. And this is now right outside of her house, right across the street at the steps, exactly where Neil was sitting that morning when she came out to go down the steps to jump into her Beetle before he started to tail her. He's almost in exactly the same position. Neil stops the car, puts the handbrake on, and then he gulps as if This is a pivotal moment. Fate, he says. What? She replies. Meeting you. Like this, he says. Fate. He's saying this in a rather strange and dramatic way. Hazel's eyes are getting a bit wider. He's still gulping with attention. Neil, after seeing your picture, I saw your picture, and now we're here. I've never met anyone like you, says Neil, and he's very nervous. He's got a bit of the jitters about him. I think you're so. She cuts him off. No. Neil, I'm sure you're really sweet. She's talking to him very deliberately. But I don't need a boyfriend now. I split up with someone, she says. Neil's eyes are like lasers as he stares down towards the dashboard, contemplating this. I split up with someone recently, she says. Well, it was pretty gruesome. Neil's eyes are almost popping out of his head as he stares into the mid-distance. Not at her, but he's staring into his mind. I'm still getting over it, she informs him. Sorry, she says, gently. Bad timing, she says, trying to take the pressure off him of rejection by saying it's just circumstances, it's just timing. I mean, in that case, if it was another time, perhaps. She puts on her charming little smile. Thanks for the lift. Controlling him with her tone of voice. Time for me to get out the car, she's saying. She gestures to get the door handle. Wait, he says abruptly. Wait. He takes his seatbelt off. I'll walk you to the door. He does it anyway. She doesn't get a chance to stop him. As she gets out, he gets out anyway, out of the Volvo estate. Hazel walks fast and forward and up the steps with him behind her. She's now very uncomfortable at his presence. She wants rid of him. He's blind to the signals here. He's not really, he's just ignoring her signals, more like. Hazel's mouth is hanging open as she goes through her door with him bearing down. Her face changes to a pleasant smile. Well, Neil, this is it. Trying to brush him away. Neil puts a entitled look on his face. Can I come in? And he looks past her into her flat as if to say, this would be appropriate. I'm entitled to be invited in, says his look. Hazel becomes a bit more direct. With a frown on her face, she says, "Didn't you hear what I just said?" Neil's jaw drops, his eyes widen. He's not having any of it. "I need to use the toilet," he says. Hazel's having difficulty with his persistence. She thinks about this request. She shakes her head. "Look, Neil, I'll only be 2 minutes," he says, as if it's no big deal, and preying on her good nature, sense of decency and politeness. He leaves a pause so as not to help her out. She looks at him, he looks at her, and then he says, "I did give you a lift." Resigned to this, Hazel pushes her front door open and she gives him a look to say, "Yeah, alright. Just make it quick." So Hazel walks into her house, followed by a tall man, Annie Parker. A man who's probably not playing with a full deck. We've reached part 8 of this fascinating story, Adults, starring the lovely and decent Hazel and the increasingly menacing Neil. Neil's the man who managed to wangle his way into the art class and become an impromptu student. And now, using emotional blackmail, he has cajoled Hazel into letting him into her house. This is a big step, literally. Hazel walks into her own home, followed by Parker Man. Parker Man Neil may not be quite as daft as he acts, because he's getting results here. Socially inept he may be, but somehow he's managing to get his own way. Neil strides in with a slight grin on his face, and he starts to case the joint, look around. Hazel doesn't really notice this because she's behind him. So she says, "The bathroom's there," pointing to the side, and just in case he walks any further in. Neil thrusts forward. Hazel's just about to say, "And then I'd like you to leave," but she doesn't get a chance to get the words out because Neil has already disappeared and he's pounding along the hall, heading into the house, as if he's somehow won a prize. in a very decisive manner, Neil strides through the bathroom door, big pitch pine door, and shuts it decisively, while maintaining eye contact with Hazel. It's almost as if he's made some territorial gain, and he's eyeballing her to say, so far so good. I've got this from you. I'm in your bathroom now. In her art class, in her life, in her house, in a bathroom. Where next? Hazel is very uncomfortable here. She doesn't like this at all. Let's face it, who would? A stranger barging into your privacy? Hazel puts her keys down on the hall table, takes her coat off, hangs it up. Meanwhile, Neil wastes no time. When he's in the bathroom, he gets into action. With dexterity and speed, Neil starts to rifle through her bathroom cabinet, checking all the different bottles and potions. Starts to even take some notes, stares at all the ingredients very carefully, starts grabbing a lot of the content of her bathroom cabinet, the actual bottles and little plastic tubs. He starts grabbing quite a few of them once he checks what they are and puts them in his Parker pocket. Maybe that's why he's wearing this big puffy jacket with the deep pockets. He seems to be collecting her medicine. Meanwhile, Hazel is dialing her phone, her mobile phone, for help. Not her landline, she's on her little mobile, dialing somebody to get help. To get this guy out of her hair, literally. Hazel is whispering to someone on the phone. Yes, now, this minute. Yes, come. Next up, as you might expect, Neil starts to work on her linen basket, rifling through her used underwear. Yes, he's that type of guy. He grabs a few samples of her bra and panties and the like, and stuffs them quickly into his Parker pockets. He's getting quite a collection here. Hazel is making the panic call. She's saying, I'll explain when you get here, just come, quick. Neil has wasted no time in effectively raiding her bathroom, her medicine cabinet, her underwear and laundry basket, and then once he's satisfied he's grabbed enough prizes, he flushes the loo. Doesn't even use it. Never needed to go anyway. He flushes the loo and then steps out of the bathroom just as Hazel clicks her phone off and hides it from his view. Neil walks over to Hazel with a gentle smile on his face, all nicey. This is great, he says. This place. Oh, it's great. Nice place you live in. And he struts around, looking about, eyes darting from side to side. Not even looking at her, just looking around her house. Effectively invading the rest of her house with his eyes. Neil starts to wander deeper into the house, totally ignoring Hazel, who points at the front door. No, please, she points at the front door to indicate that's the way you're supposed to go. He goes the opposite way. And then he walks into her bedroom. Quickly cases the bedroom, and then back out along the hallway and into the living room, which is a very well set out living room full of tasteful art pictures, a PC computer, beautiful. It looks like a living room from the Modern Homes exhibition. She's a woman who is very neat and tidy and has great decor taste. And Neil is looking around saying, yes, I'm going to get a place like this. I wonder where he's going to get it from. He says, I live with my grandmother at the moment. Really? She says, in a deadpan voice. Neil notices, and he says, well, it's only temporary. She can't look after herself, he says, as he stares at her, as if to say, what are you thinking about me? Looks like he's trying to turn himself into a little bit of a hero here. She's just getting a bit, and then he starts to look around again, getting distracted. You know, she's just getting a bit, and he looks back at her. She's getting a bit batty, he says, referring to his grandmother. Look, Neil, Hazel says, exasperated, brushing through her hair with her hand. I'm getting very tired. Neil's not bothered. He doesn't react to this. He still keeps looking around the place, taking everything in. It's like a kid in a candy shop, eyes gleaming, slightly wild. You're so talented, he says to her, almost as if he's sounding sarcastic. He completely ignores her exasperation and social cues. He looks down and there's quite a few books sitting on a coffee table. And he says, have you read all these books? And he points at them. Please, Hazel pleads with him to just get out. Go. Right now. This minute. This second. Neil entirely ignores her. Doesn't even acknowledge what she's saying. He just keeps strutting around, looking around, and he's going, wow, wow. He spreads his arms out wide. This is where you work. Wow. And then he reaches out and starts to touch her paintings and illustrations which are on the table. And he's brushing his fingertips on them and he's going, wow, wow, these are beautiful. And he's almost caressing the paintings on the table. They're beautiful. Beautiful, he says, looking down and brushing them, caressing them. And then he looks up at her very directly. Just like you, he whispers. That's why and then he's cut off. There's a sharp chap of a door knocker at the door. There's a flash of relief on Hazel's face. Someone else is coming into the dynamic. Someone who may be on her side. Gosh, Hazel says she's not a very good actress in this situation, trying to sound surprised. I wonder who that can be, she says. Not very convincing acting, but I don't think he cares anyway, Neil. Neil gives her a look as if to say, I think you've probably betrayed me. Here, who's this coming to the door? He's got a look that this was all about me, but now there's somebody else getting involved. And Neil doesn't like that. Doesn't like it at all. Ever the opportunist. And Hazel, just as naive as ever, leaves him standing there in her living room. Well, she goes to answer the knock on the door. Neil produces from inside his Parker pocket a little radio camera, a little black spy camera. Sets it up and quickly puts it up on top of a shelf pointing into the living room. A little wide-angled radio surveillance camera. In walks a woman of about 35 years of age, which is a friend, clearly, of Hazel. My neighbour, Hazel announces, introducing a woman who's the same height as Hazel, not too tall, and she's black African in her appearance, dark skin, short hair, and she's wearing a flowery dark type of dress. Beautiful looking woman. She looks a bit with huge bubble like earrings. She does look a bit more street savvy than her friend Hazel. She's got a bolder manner, and she's not frightened to eyeball Neil, giving him a look as if to say, so you're the trouble. So she looks, she's not scared of him, not frightened to look at him. That's who Hazel had called to get help. Her friend. She gestures an up-palmed expression over to Neil, and she says to her friend, Carrie, this is Neil, doing the introduction. Neil doesn't even acknowledge her. He says, I'm just going, he says, and walks towards the both of them. He pauses between them as he's heading towards the front door, and he looks down at Carrie. He's kind of towering over them in a sense, and gives her a look of contempt, as if to say, what are you even doing here? What is your point of being around? He clearly wants Hazel all for himself. Casual as you like, having installed a surveillance system in her living room, raided her bathroom cabinet of her medicines, and also got the prize of her underwear. Casual as you like, he walks towards the door, saying, "Alright then, Hayes," he says, "I'll see you next week, if not before." "Next week?" Hazel asks. He doesn't like that question. He turns around, puts on the face of petulance. "At the art class," he's saying. "The art class, I'll see you there, if not before." Neil walks out of the front door and down the first couple of steps. Hazel shouts through the gap in the door, No, I was just standing in the art class." "What?" Neil was thinking. "What's all this about?" "I was just standing in for a friend," says Hazel, taking the art class as a stand-in to help a friend out. "Sorry," she says. "One time only." She's a bit slightly more relaxed now that on her side of the door is her friend, and on the other side of the outside part of the door, there's Neil now down the steps. She's slightly more relaxed at this position. "Good night," she says through the gap in the door. This time she does it right, assertively, and doesn't leave him an opening, a comeback. She closes the door on him. Neil has got a sour face on him. He doesn't like this. He seems that he's not got enough control here. Not as much as what he thought he had. Hazel leans back on the door with her back and lets out a deep, puffy breath of relief. Her friend, Carrie, peers round the living room door with a gentle smile on her face. And Carrie says nothing, waiting for Hazel to say what she wants to say. And Hazel says, "And the moral of this story is never accept lifts from strangers." And so things are pacing on here. We're now at part 9 of the dramatic story Adults. Neil has had the door closed on him on a dark evening. Streets and pavements are wet. He walks down the steps and walks along the pavement. Not very far. Then he opens a iron gate, a black iron gate, railings. Steps down just a few steps to get to slightly below street level as he crouches down, just a little bit below pavement level, enough to keep him in the shadows, out of view. And he opens up his parka jacket, Neil does, and whips out a sleek laptop computer. As he gets it fired up, it glows a blue light which lights up his face, giving him an eerie complexion. Meanwhile, Carrie, the friend of Hazel, is getting a few skins together and rolling up a joint, a reefer, in a well-practiced move. She's constructed a long cigarette. She puts it in her mouth and gets it fired up with a lighter, a big flame at the end. And then she refers to Hazel's ex, the man Hazel has recently split up with. Carrie says that men like Mark expect you just to crash and burn when they dump you. So we have a girly talk here, where they're both going to be talking and explaining how they've been turned over, badly treated by blokes. As Carrie speaks away, she's concentrating more on her joint or reefer than directly looking at Hazel, because they're friends. They don't need to keep making direct eye contact, because it's not a job interview. Hazel herself has half downed a generous big glass of wine. So that's her chosen relaxation or relaxant. Big glass of wine. With Carrie, it's a highly styled reefer, a joint. No big deal. Yes, says Hazel, taking a gulp of her wine. Just all the ones I meet. Carrie puffs away on her joint as Hazel gulps away on her wine. They're just plain relaxing of an evening. Meanwhile, Parker Man has got his laptop booted up and tuned in with a fine, clear picture of Carrie and Hazel sitting in their living room with a nice choice of wide-angled lens on his spy camera. Sitting on a shelf, he has a perfect view of the living room from his recess. He's sitting down these steps, out of view, with his glowing laptop screen. So all is fine with Neil. He's tested his surveillance system and it's working a treat. Carrie makes some comment about Hazel not to give up sex, because if she does, her ex-boyfriend Mark has somehow won. So she shouldn't do that. Hazel says, How do you figure that out? And Carrie says, well, it's just you don't want these bastards to win. And she takes a large drag on her joint. Neil is observing this, and he can see that Hazel is replenishing her wine glass. She's whacking it full from the bottle. Neil's technology is working perfectly, so he shuts up shop for the evening, clips back his laptop, shuts it down, puts it under his parka, gets up through the gate, along the street a bit, jumps into his Volvo estate, and off he goes. Where is he going? He's heading for home, his grandmother's house, and it's a very big house. He parks the car outside and breezes in up to the front door, and big traditional building with bay windows either side, and he's carrying a tube, a rolled up tube, as he gets to the front door. He's rattling some keys on his right hand, and his canvas, his artwork, is in his left hand. And he opens the door, strides right in. A few more steps, and he opens the door to the living room and bounces through. His grandmother, a very old lady with wrinkled skin and a wrinkled face. She's about 80 years old. And she looks at, she doesn't even acknowledge he's coming through the door. She's transfixed by the TV. Her TV is a one that you get in a wooden cabinet. It's got a pretty decorative lamp sitting on top of it, a lamp which is switched on, and it's a traditional or conventional old-fashioned square TV in a wooden cabinet. His grandmother's face is resting in her hand, one hand, which is resting on her knee, as she's looking down a bit towards the TV, transfixed by the flashing, flickering box, not looking up to acknowledge her grandson. There's a little wicker, circular tray with one coffee mug sitting on it. Neil has a smug grin on his face. With his head slightly canted, he's looking towards the old biddy, his grandmother, who glances back towards him away from the TV, but she says nothing. "How was your evening?" Neil says to her, almost sarcastically, as if he's mocking her, because he knows full well she's just been sitting there staring at a TV all evening. "Oh, it was alright," says his grandmother, and then just keeps staring at a TV. Neil bounces forward with big strides and sits down face to face with his grandmother. His grandmother's got a floral type of old-fashioned dress on. Very white, greyish white hair, bushy. And Neil is sitting there facing her, crouched down with his elbows on his knees, and he's clutching a tube which is his painting. Directly making eye contact with his grandmother, he says, "I've had the most wonderful evening." "I've fallen in love," he says. His grandmother looks slightly perturbed. "Again?" she says, sceptically. Neil's eyelids fall. His chin and lips tighten. He doesn't like this reaction. Referring to his experiential memory, Neil stares down towards the carpet. "That wasn't love. No, that wasn't." The TV's chattering away right behind him. He's blocked the view so that he's become the centre of attention. So his grandmother can't see the TV, just hear it chit-chatting, but he's right in front of it, sitting there with his big puffy jacket on. "I can see that now," he says, deep in thought. Referring to some type of previous relationship. His grandmother says nothing. "This time," says Neil, "it's the real thing." His eyes are beginning to gleam brightly in the lamplight. And then, out of his deep thought, he directly looks at his grandmother for emphasis and pronounces, "I haven't told her yet, but I'm going to marry her," he says with pride. There's a joke that goes around in recent times about immature men who live in the basement, their mother's basement, that type of thing, usually directed at unsuccessful American men, or perceived to be unsuccessful, as if they're hiding away in their mother's basement, and they're too feeble to face the world, and they hang around and are getting catered for, and they don't amount to much, and down in their basement they subsist. Perhaps they do something creative, but perhaps that the creative activity is not impressive or skillful, but it's a reason for them being down there all the time, because they're not facing the argy-bargy associated with thrusting your presence into the world and getting on in life. So this story here with Neil, his grandmother, and Hazel is set in 2002, so about 21 years ago. So Neil is ahead of his time. With his surveillance system, high technology there. That's futuristic. And also he has a den in the basement, a secret place that he keeps to himself. And so Neil walks out of the living room, leaves his grandmother watching the TV, and he heads towards his basement den. Goes down the creakiest wooden steps and into a very dark and dingy hole deep down under the house. It's not lit up by any incandescent lights or tungsten lamps or anything. It just seems to be almost like candles flickering away giving it a dim light. And there's big containers and jars on dusty dark shelves that almost look like specimen jars. And there's chains, metal chains lying around, some clipped or bolted to the wall, some just lying around on shelves. Very dodgy looking place, almost more akin to a dungeon than a den. But there's a very impressive display, a candlelit display. He's got at least half a dozen candles and maybe another 8 to 10 little tea lights, all burning away on a makeshift altar which he's created. And the centrepiece of this altar is his drawing, his art class drawing, which is now is a very crude image of a lady, big-breasted lady, lying back. A crude charcoal drawing, but the face is now a photograph of Hazel. So he stuck a photograph onto the body to make it resemble the lovely Hazel. What's the word for it? An effigy or something like that. But he's also got a pair of her panties dangling away at the front of the altar, plus her pill bottles and other personal items. They're all attached to different parts of the display. This is his shrine to his future wife,